We come now to chapter 11, which is called Idle at Noon. My mummy, can we take a picnic lunch? Asked Linda. Where will you take it, dear? To the toy village. It's nice there. That's a good idea. Thelma liked the idea of the girls being well out of the way when Kevin returned from his morning adventures. Living with him was a little like living with a volcano, or more familiar to her on account of her late father living with an alcoholic. She was never quite sure what Kevin's mood would bring, and so she planned ahead, especially on holidays. Mummy, can we plan our lunch by ourselves? I suppose so. What did you want to have? Debbie thought it was time she said something, and rattled out, peanut butter and bananas and ice cream and peanuts and pop. Sure, you've got enough peanuts. Perhaps you'd like peanut butter cookies as well. Yes, lots of them. Thelma sighed. The irony and sarcasm were lost on the very young. I don't know how you're going to take ice cream on a day like this. Put it in a jar and wrap it up with something, Mum. Debbie had more to say. And I want crunchy lunch in my ice cream. Crunchy lunch as well as peanuts? Yes, lots of it. Okay. I'll put the ice cream and granola and nuts in a nice peanut butter jar, wrap it in newspaper, and leave it in the freezer till everything else is ready. You promised me to eat it first. Yes, Mummy, said Linda, wondering what all the fuss was about. Liquid ice cream was just as good, especially if that crunch was in it. Which way will you be going, in case we want to find you? I told you, Mummy, to the toy village. Oh, yes. Well, be careful. How are those little people getting on out there in all that weather? Okay. We had to leave them in a hurry yesterday because something scared us, said Linda. What was it? It might have been a skunk, but there was no smell. Then it wasn't a skunk. Did it make any noise? It was creeping in the bush, and there was a plop, plop, plop sound. Plop, 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 plop. Debbie's contribution was accompanied with falling on the floor and pretending she was either a wild animal or a stone plopping in water. It was one or the other. Yes, dear. I love you, Mum, said Debbie, batting her eyelashes and turning her head on her shoulder. And I love you too, dear. You're my special baby. Linda looked on in good-humored scorn. She didn't mind all the fuss over Debbie, because she was such a baby, and that kept her in her place and gave Linda authority over her. Linda was not quite old enough to realize that Debbie's beauty might put her in the shade. Beauty was something to be appreciated for Linda, but it did not compare with her mind and intelligence, which was what she admired, especially in herself. Linda. Yes, Mum. Have you had any more trouble with Kevin since today? Of course not. Haven't seen him today. He hasn't been here. I'm not worried about him bossing over you. I just I want him troubling you. He's a bully, perhaps, but you lead him on, and he's really tempted by teasing. Anyway, stay clear of him. Have your lunch. Ice cream is hard on top, and you eat it first. Lots of crunch, said Debbie. Lots of crunch. Goodbye. Have a good time. The girls went out. Linda, as befits authority, carried the lunch. Debbie bounced and paid over the road allowance, and they soon arrived at the toy village. Linda, it smells. What smells? The dollies and the house we left. Debbie was right. It was a pungent smell. Some of the fine veneer on the toy furniture was curled slightly, glistening with crystals, and in one or two places there were flies buzzing in clusters. That had never happened before in all the summers they put in the toy village out. Smells like pee. Oh, that nasty, nasty animal. He messed up my dollies. It was a nasty animal. We'll have to clean up. Please, Judy, not before lunch. Let's have lunch here first. I don't want to eat near the nasty animal. Let's go into the field so it won't be far away. Okay. The girls scrambled through the bushes into the field. It was the field next above the one where just a few seconds before Kevin and Bart had played poltergeist with the survey crews. The girls wandered, looking for a spot for lunch. They heard the engine of a jeep rev up, saw clouds of smoke, and could dimly see some shapes jumping up and down. But they did not recognize their brother and Bartholomew. Let's go and see what's there, Linda. No, we'll do that later. Let's sit right here and have our ice cream. We promised Mummy. Even at her tender age, she felt it gave her some of her mother's dignity, to use the proper word instead of the affectionate one. So the two sat down and tucked into their lunch. Linda carefully arranged herself, sitting upright, while Debbie sprawled on her stomach, her legs kicking in the air. The mess in the peacock butter jar was like the food of the gods to them, as they took alternate drippy swipes with their spoons, licking the ice cream from their chins and lips, and crunching the peanuts and granola with unashamed noise. This dessert, taken first, was so satisfying that they actually paused before digging into their peanut butter and banana sandwiches. Lindy, said Debbie in her baby voice, let's eat the rest of our lunch down there. Okay, said Lightly, already a little flushed from eating. As a baby, she used to turn scarlet in her high chair and fall asleep at the end of her feeding, making a luminescent glow in the kitchen. Such a mood was nearly on her, and she struggled to her feet. The two set off, rather more slowly, and Linda was not nearly so concerned about her authority and her dignity. Even Debbie wasn't talking. By chance, was carrying the remains of the lunch. The field they were in was quite large, and it took them some minutes to reach the rock, trees, and wire fence. They slowly climbed down into this and surveyed the next field where lately there had been some movement and action to attract their eyes. Seen from the west, it sloped gently towards the east, and the slope ending in a long bank. Such banks were common in the valleys between the drumlins of Northumberland. At some other time, a stream had flowed there. Just below the bank, the ground leveled off, and they began to climb again into the footworks of the next drumlin, a less outstanding mound than Scace's Hill, which was both drumlins and escarpment. Cedars and thorns had been allowed to grow through the field. At one point in the bank, there was a concentration of trees, pines covering the upper and lower edges of the bank. These pines had a sudden chaste beauty compared with the raggle-taggle brownish-green cedars and the menacing thorns and wild roses. So to this clump the girls made their way. If they had approached from the lower side of the bank, they would have seen signs of recent activity. Broken twigs, a whole forest under the interior, and cherry and electric wires protruding into the open air. But they came from above, and gentle natural openings invited them into their shade. They pressed in until they found a floor of needles, some ferns, and a log to sit on. They were on an older Ontario strand than they knew. For a while the sound of munching was the only disturbance of the still moment of the day. Then the little sounds of nature were restored. Crickets, a bird fluttering in a treetop, small scratchings by insects went about their business. Linda was propped against the log, sinking into deep sleep. Debbie lay again on her stomach, enjoying the tickling needles and gazing, and after a while she became aware that she was being gazed at too. The chipmunk, or chippy, is one of the more delightful creatures in Ontario. A small version of the squirrel, it is never the same nor is given to living in cities. It moves with lightning speed, its little tail arched behind it. This one was attracted by the smell of peanuts, so strong as to eclipse the usually dangerous smell of humans. He sat and watched. The blind creature facing it might or might not be alive, he decided. It smelled of nut, oily and pungent. Chippy had never before seen a nut so big, and he was wary lest such a large nut might be the eater and not the eaten. He advanced a few paces, then stopped, aware that the nut had eyes. It moved as he moved. Then the nut spoke. "Long ago," said Debbie in a trance, "long ago, in ice and snow." Linda picked up the rhyme in her sleep. "Long ago, in ice and snow, before the trees could feel the breeze, the sky was blue, the earth was true," said Debbie. "The sky was blue, the earth was true," echoed Linda. "The lake could make a great rock break. The icy star loved its daughters." Linda was now adding lines. "Mums and dads," went on Debbie. "And little lads," said Linda. "Who came together," said Debbie. "In sunshine weather," finished Linda. This was a new game. They had never played this game before, although they loved to read children's books in their room. It was naturally Linda who read and Debbie who asked questions or dozed. Now little Debbie had taken the lead. Both were quite held in the memory and the mystery of the ancient scene their verse had created. During this recital, the chipmunk had remained frozen. Once they stopped, he seated on his haunches and then stirred, stopping only when he came to the top of a huge rock that lay inside the grove of trees. Then he stopped, looking back, and wondered what he had been so frightened of. Neither of the two nut-smelling things was moving. He ran down the rock and sniffed. Still no stir. Rummaging around, he found some of the nut stuff near them. It nibbled away. It wasn't hard enough for a real nut, but it was satisfying. Chipmunk ran off, scampering over Linda's leg. On the way, she stirred slightly, then got more comfortable on her log. Flies buzzed, wings flapped. The girl slept on. And this is the end of Chapter 11 of Drumlin Fever.